I don't think anybody today should take anything away other than the comments that were made in the meeting that preceded this media advisory. Everything that could have been said, needed to be said, was said. We have people on both sides of the issue, but I think that the strength lies in the conclusion, and that is a lot of work's been done, more is yet to come. No one has lost heart, no one has lost their commitment. But we are faced with some very particular realities today. When I asked in December for an LAO report, it was with some trepidation because I didn't want anybody to feel that this was a failure to exercise the commitment of the Senate. But I knew that what the governor was going to do in his budget did not portend well for anyone. And the questions that were being asked by the finance staff indicated to me that a situation that I thought was bad, in fact, was worse. The LAO report was commissioned, and then the first of the year rolled around, and I don't believe anybody can say that today, on the 27th or 28th of January, things are the way that they were on the 1st of January. We now have a much different economic outlook, a much more dire economic forecast. And we can say what we want about the future and about doing things now that are tough that will benefit us in the future. But politicians, more than anything, elected officials in particular, have to respond to the immediate needs, because getting through a period of time of difficulty is what people elect us to do. They're not looking for philosophers. They're not looking for prognosticators. They're looking for people that can help them keep their job, keep their home, not lose their life savings, have an opportunity for their kids to have a better day tomorrow than they had today or yesterday. And we're up against it right now. And in fact, when I was listening to people talk about the status quo in the committee, I thought, 5 months from now, the status quo is going to make heaven look good. I mean, we are not going to be able to maintain the status quo with the budget that we have now. We know that. The governor's talking about getting rid of 165,000 children on Medi-Cal. He's talking about kids who are, after 5 years, whose parents have been on CalWorks, are being terminated on CalWorks. Their parents haven't found a job in that period of time. I suppose the kids are supposed to go to work. I mean, this is real tough stuff. There are going to be layoffs in this state. There are going to be layoffs in school districts. There are going to be layoffs in cities and counties. People who went into public service because there was some stability are going to wake up one morning and realize, oh, gee, there wasn't. So we're on some very tough times. And I think the most important nuanced part of this is something that I don't expect most people to stop and pause on, but it certainly has given me pause. The bill would have been enacted by a majority vote. Yet, to change the financial structure of that proposal would have required a 2/3 vote. And let's face it, all the fights in this building that are serious are about 2/3. It's what makes the Republican Party relevant in a system that is usually governed by the majority. It also means that just because we should doesn't mean we can. The governor has talked about FDR and what he did during the Depression. And I've reminded him, FDR had a majority of Congress supporting him. Not a supermajority, but a majority. So you can do certain things with a majority that you cannot do with a supermajority. And it seems to me the last thing you want to do without careful thought is to pass a law that we ask the voters to approve of and in effect say to them, we will not see any changes in this financial structure unless there is a supermajority to support that. That's why so many people said, it seems to me that that kind of box that you're about to climb into would allow for one of two things to happen. You either raise the premiums or you reduce the benefits. And so not knowing exactly, for me personally, that element of what the initiative will say, and I've been told the final initiative has yet to be filed because there will be an amendment to that initiative. A change will be made in that initiative over which I will have absolutely no voice of control that will exactly determine the vote that I would have taken in the Senate had this come to the floor. And that does give me pause. And I believe that those who have the gold make the rules. But in this particular instance, just because the hospital association or the hospitals of this state are going to be paying the fee does not necessarily mean that everybody else should stand down. So more work is needed. We are going to be and continue to be committed to this. None of us are new to this. Those of us that served on boards of supervisors or who worked in county government or local government have been working on health care for as long as we've been involved. And we will continue to. But I think we've done a tough job. This is not one that I think should make anybody satisfied or pleased today. It simply has been a recognition that a lot of work, we've come further than we ever have before, and we have further to go. And we will get there. But right now, what we need to do is to recognize that when people are as fearful and as anxious as I believe Californians and Americans are today, we had better tend to the business at hand, lest we begin to look as though we don't have their interests at heart, but are looking at some future time when things will get better while the bad times persist.
In your letter, you suggested a couple of more incremental measures like medical loss ratio, etc. Are you talking about doing that this year, or do you think it's too late?
Well, no, it's this year. There are, in fact, a number of bills pending in either the Senate or the Assembly that would address some of those. You know, the people that were working together to come up with a global solution to health care have within their power and reach to solve some of the problems, like medical loss ratio, people who are a guaranteed issue. So there are some things there. There also has been 4 members of my caucus, and I'm sure people in the Assembly, have been very supportive of increasing the tobacco fee and to direct those funds to support children and health clinics. And so there are no paucity of ideas that are not complete fixes, but certainly are things that would be a sign of good faith if all the people who are cooperating so far would to continue to cooperate, and of course if the governor would sign those bills.
You mentioned that there was the election year calendar and the urgency associated with that worked against this bill. So with that in mind, is it fair to assume that you're not going to see a global fix until '09 at least?
Well, I believe that our attention will soon be turned almost exclusively to how to make sure that the state does not go insolvent in March, as we've been told that we could if we don't act quickly, and how we forestall an even more serious problem that would fall if we don't pass a budget by July of this year. So with degree of difficulty are going to be waged, this is a small degree of difficulty given what I know we're faced with the budget. No one came up to Sacramento to shred services to the people who need them most, and yet that's what we're faced with.
The governor made this.
Thank you. You kind of covered a little bit, but if you could speak specifically.
I don't mind being repetitious. I've earned a little.
Well, I'm a little fuzzy. There was a lot of talk in the hearing of not starting over and not starting from scratch, and it appeared that you might want to start with some incremental steps, and it seems that there's a question about whether you would sort of draw on what's already been done. Can you address specifically what would happen with this bill and where you see things going from here on out with this subject matter?
Well, I don't know where this bill goes in the future. I certainly am prepared to yield, continuously yield to the Speaker as the chief architect of this bill. What I have said in my letter, what members have asked me is, may we continue to work on things that may be small by comparison, but important in fact, to help improve parts of the system right now. There was something in my letter that something that was not in my letter that I became aware of this week, and that was listening to hospital architects and construction designers talk about the enormous costs in California to build a hospital that are adding hundreds of millions of dollars to healthcare premiums, and it's not the same anywhere else in the country. Our costs are simply higher. Well, if we want to really wrap our arms around this problem, let's look at the things that we can do right now. If Democrats are going to be saddled with the responsibility as the majority to do some things, there are some things that can be done in a partisan way here and in a bipartisan way if the governor signs it. And I hope that the governor's attitude now is much more expansive, the way he looks at individual legislation. I think before he was trying to get at what he felt was best. He vetoed some things that we felt were important. He didn't. Now I'm hopeful that he'll review some of the things that we have already put on his desk. Some of the things are contained in the letter, and he'll sign them, and we'll make some progress. Real money will be saved. Services will be retained.
The governor made this his #1 priority. Do you think there's anything strategically he could have done to have given it a better chance of passage? And that same question for the speaker, which we made it.
Well, I believe that, no, I don't think that the speaker could have done anything more than that he did. There's no fault with his performance or leadership at all. Candidly, the governor cannot get his own party to support health care reform. They made it eminently obvious early on and repeatedly, we are not going to support anything that requires a fee, a tax, or anything that looks or walks like one. As a consequence of that, the governor was left with this hybrid where you write a law in the legislature, but you fund it through an initiative. That is the most bizarre construct anybody's ever seen. Any initiative that goes to the ballot usually goes ahead and funds things at somebody else's expense. No one's ever done this before. The governor had no alternative because of his party's intractability. So, and I don't know, I'm the last person to advise the governor how he gets votes out of his own party, but because of that, it's really a misnomer to term this as a bipartisan effort. Bipartisanship means that you have people working together within the legislature. That was not the case here. Although I must say, listening to Dr. Onestad talk today in committee and Abel Maldonado, I was encouraged by the things that they said, the thoughtfulness that they provided. I don't mean that in any, I'm not being facetious. But there seems to me a basis there for continuing to work on this. Certainly if a man of medicine is not interested in reforming health care, nobody is. But the governor just came into the ring with one hand behind his back, and he never was able to put up both fists.
I mean, does this failure today kind of point out the difficulty of trying a centrist approach to health care?
No, I don't think there was such. Yeah, I wouldn't call this a failure. I wouldn't call this a failure. I think Barry Broad mentioned it, and it was funny. I remember the helmet law. I was working in the legislature as a 21-year-old teacher working part-time for Bob Crown when that helmet bill was introduced in 1967. So I'm 40 years into that one. So I just think right now you've got, the politics is the art of the possible, and I believe we got as far as was possible right now. No one predicted that the sky would fall as fast as it has around the country's economy. Nobody predicted that the subprime market could threaten and cause a recession at the time when everybody was being offered a free home to buy. So it's luck and timing, and right now we haven't had the luck. It's bad timing. We're going to continue to punch away at it, and I don't think anybody is feeling beaten down or bowed. Everybody's feeling like we've got to just continue.
Thank you.
Pursuing the hospital tax and the active tax.
Nice try.
Wouldn't you have to take both those to the ballot?
Well, we call them fees, and I think if you call them fees, you at least get people to listen to what you have to say. For the life of me, I don't understand why no one would support, anyone, Republican or Democrat, would fail to support a tax on a product that we know is related to bad health. So that's one I have a lot of hope for. I do recognize we have an agreement with the federal government, funny notion, that we will do nothing until 2010 on the hospital fee, but we can get ourselves prepared right now that the first day of that year we come in the front door and say, here, we want the deal. Thank you.